honest with you, like I challenged you last week when we spent our time with worship, with God in worship. I challenged you to, although I know it's difficult for us sometimes, to tell God thank you for the personality He's given us. Because being honest, any of you sometimes find yourself annoying yourself with the things you do. It's like, why did I do that? Why am I like that? Anybody find why do I do things like this? Why do I get so upset at certain things? Sometimes I just get upset with myself because I'm getting upset over something that's stupid. And part of it's just the way that I've been wired. And anyway, I don't like being a lion because lions just they can irritate other people. And I'm good at confronting people, but I don't like to have to do that. And so when I went home and I just took the test just for fun, and then it wasn't becoming very fun, I was getting a little upset. But then I remembered that God, had wanted us to be grateful for the personality He's given us. Even if some people don't like our personality, God likes who we are because that's the way He made us. And I had to that night say, God, I am thankful for the lion You made me to be because that's how You want to use me. And so I had to do what I challenged you guys to do. I had to go then and live it out because I was not being very thankful when I started seeing how much of a lion I was. Tonight, the topic is, or the E, the final letter is experiences. And just the way that God has given us each unique spiritual gifts, abilities, personality, all those things, He's also brought us each through unique experiences in life. I'm guessing everyone in here, their story is quite a bit different than the person sitting next to them. I know we've got one young man who was born in Thailand. And some people from America, God put on their heart, one of their passions or one of their hard things was to adopt some young children from Thailand. And I believe they've adopted 3 now, correct? You're the oldest? All 3 are from Thailand, correct? Yep. And so some people from America went over to Thailand and adopted him. That's part of his story. We've got one person here from Italia, one person born in Germany. So we've got 3 people that were born in different countries. Anyone else in here born in a different country besides the U.S.? No? Anybody Mars or anything? No? Yeah. I figured maybe a couple of us. Sweet. And so, how about anyone that's ever, besides the 3 of you obviously, anyone that's ever just even lived in a different state before? Anyone here that's lived in a different state besides Minnesota? I have. I'm one that has. Okay. Anybody that has been, until you, has basically lived in the same house their whole life, or grew up in the same house their whole life?
Until I moved.
Until she moved into the new house, she was from the same house. Okay, so we all have different stories. The first thing I want to mention to you tonight, to talk about here, is our happy moments or our good experiences in life. I'm just going to share a few of mine. Okay? A few years ago, I was in college. Actually, it was quite a few years ago. And I'm going to share some small happy moments and then maybe some bigger ones. But I like to play basketball. It's probably my favorite sport to watch. And obviously in the summer I wear basketball jerseys all the time because I get so hot that I like the sleeveless style. But anyway, I enjoy playing basketball, but I'm not very good. Definitely not good enough to play in college. Anyway, we formed, a few of my friends formed this intramural basketball team. Now, we weren't really that good. We had a lot of heart, though. Our team had a lot of heart. I've always been a hustler. My lack of talent, I try to make up with my hustle. And that's basically what it was. There was a few guys that had been football players, a few of us that just, whatever, we just wanted to play basketball. And we were okay. Anyway, in the tournament, I think we weren't seeded last. We were low to the bottom. And in the second round of the tournament, we had to play the number 1 team. And these guys were like the studs, the wide receivers, the running backs. Not to say they were, okay, most of them were black, and they're typically, generally not always, they're better at basketball, and these guys were good. They weren't, college level basketball players, but they were like the studs. And we were, some of us were a few years older and all that, and it's just like, and not in shape from sports and all that. And these guys just tore through everybody. But for one game in the intramural league, we played even with them the whole way. And as the game's going on, because we were the big underdogs, and intramural usually doesn't draw a crowd, and there's people coming and going through the gym, and as the game's going on, later into the game, I don't know if we played 2 20-minute halves, more and more people are watching this game to see if these older, out-of-shape white dudes can beat the studs from the football team. And it was just crazy because these guys were so much better than us, but our shots were falling, theirs weren't. We were playing tough defense. And it got down to the last few seconds, and we were down by one, and one of our guys got fouled. He goes in, he makes his first foul free throw to tie the game, but he misses his second shot. It goes to overtime, and we were out of gas, and they pulled away and they beat us in overtime. But just the fact that we took them to overtime was just an exciting moment. We were all just pretty stoked about it because we didn't think we had a chance in that game. So that was one I look back on, and just as a team we came together and we gave it our best. And for us, the final score wasn't a win, but it was a victory for us. So that's one of my happy moments I hold on to. A couple other ones I want to share. In 1996, how many of you were born in 1996? Most of you would be. 1996. Most of you probably don't remember this, but the New York Yankees were playing in a World Series against the Atlanta Braves. And the first two games were in New York, and the Atlanta Braves beat the Yankees. They go back to Atlanta to play 3 games. And in the third game of the series, the Atlanta Braves go up 6-0. It's like in the 5th inning, 6-0. So it's looking like we're going to lose this game. We'll be down 3-0, probably over. My dad and I are watching this game. We're kind of like, all right. We were excited. We thought we were going to win one here. And all of a sudden, the next few innings, the Yankees came storming back and tied the game and took the lead and won the next 3 games after that. Took the series 6-2. It was the first World Series that Derek Jeter. Anybody ever heard of Derek Jeter? First one he won at the Yankees, then they won a bunch more after that. And that was a pretty exciting moment. And there was another one in 2007. The Colts, of all the years lately with Peyton Manning that they should have made it to the Super Bowl, they finally made it to one. And I was living out in Oregon. My dad and I, I'd been here, and my dad and I have been waiting to watch one of these games together, or a Super Bowl together, and all of a sudden this year I'm out in Oregon, and that's the year they make it. But somebody from the church here came to my dad and said, hey, you know what, I have a bunch of saved up, what do they call them? Frequent flyer miles that I'm never going to use. They're going to expire this year. Would your son want to come home to watch the Super Bowl? And I was able to fly home for free and watch the Super Bowl with my dad before going back out to Oregon. And that was a really cool moment. The other, probably the best moment of my life, one of the best, obviously, was the day I got married to this wonderful young lady, Sarah. So that topped the list. So I have a lot of good experiences in life. So what I want you to do, and you can while I'm talking, just make a few notes. What are some of your really good experiences? Try to, if you can think of your best one, put your best one on there. If you got a couple others that they stick out in your mind, watching a Super Bowl, not a big deal, but because of the circumstances, that was a really cool thing. Put them on there. Okay, then we have other experiences in life. I probably should have saved the happy ones for the last, but I guess I did it this way. Anybody know what this is a picture of? Twin Towers, 9/11, it's coming to know. It's September 11th, 2001, right? Or was it 2000?
I think it was 2001.
2001? Okay, that's right. Okay, 2001. Obviously that was a sad experience. I've told this story for you. Some of this, most of you maybe. Any of you old enough to remember where you were when you heard that happen? What's that?
I was like 3.
Really?
I was 4.
Where were you?
I was at my kind of aunt's house. She's one of my family's best friend.
Okay. Why do you think you remember that? So what was?
Because everybody was crying and I didn't know what was going on, so I was scared.
Oh really? Okay. Wow. Okay.
I was at preschool.
You remember where you were when the announcement?
Preschool.
It's one of those things you just remember where you are in the current situation. I actually was in college at that time. And I had gone to a class in the morning, and one of the teachers of the class we went to had the TV on and said, you guys go home, turn your TVs on, and watch what's going on. This is a major event. And so we all went back to our dorms or whatever and watched it. It was a crazy day. And actually, I turned on the TV and I saw live the second one come into the building. We're watching, not really believing what's going on, and then all of a sudden there's another plane that hit. Did you see them live? Any of them live?
I was in 6th grade, we were watching it. My teacher's math class, he came in, he was like, so we were watching it, and then...
Yeah, and it's changed our world. Those things changed our world. Let's see, a couple other experiences in my life. I've shared this story before, but also when I was in college, I was on a soccer team, and we had a lot of people from different countries on our team. It was very, what do they call it, an international team kind of. We had a few guys from Jamaica, and we had one young man from Mexico. His name was Guillermo, and I know I've told this story. Some of you maybe heard this. Anyway, Guillermo he joined our team late in the season, And you could just kind of tell in knowing the guy that he carried a lot of hurts with him. And anyway, he joined the team. He played some significant time in varsity. He was a good player. And then after the season, we had some practices, especially for those coming back the next year. And there was one day we went to practice, and Coach was pretty shaken up. And he announced to us that Guillermo the night before had killed his girlfriend and then killed himself with a knife from the kitchen. And none of us really knew what happened, but that was kind of a pretty, it shook our team up. You know, we had a funeral that we went to as a team and all that, and that was it was a sad moment for us, because a lot of us have grown to really love Guillermo, you know, as a brother. And then for me too, probably one of the saddest moments in my life was back, I was probably about 19 at the time, and my oldest cousin was 18, and I got the news one morning that he had been killed in a car accident the night before, driving with some friends. And you know, those were tough moments. Those are sad moments, things that we go through in life. Yeah. The last experience of the three different types of moments I want to talk about, and they're probably similar to the one I just that I just shared about, but these are hurtful moments. A little bit different than sad moments. There can be a lot of sadness involved in these, but these are things that people have done that have personally hurt us. Or they can also be maybe you've done things and it's something that you knew was wrong. And you kind of, in some ways, you hurt yourself by doing it, because it's like you thought you were a better person than that. Two experiences that are moments that I want to share. One was a number of years ago, at the same time when I was out in Oregon. I had been dating this girl for about a year, and we had gotten pretty serious and talked about marriage a little bit. But during that time when I was out in Oregon, that's when really God had stirred my heart to pursue youth ministry. I contemplated being actually a high school math teacher, and had actually been talking about for about a year, pursuing that and going back to school for that. But then as time was going on, I knew that really my passion was more speaking and teaching God's Word to young people as opposed to teaching math. And I knew that this is something I could get excited about. Like on a Wednesday night, I could prepare something where math, I would have a hard time getting excited about numbers and letters and all those different things, and geometry and all that stuff. And I just like, you know what, this is what I need to be. These are where my abilities are. This is where my passion is. I need to do this. However, at the time, when I broke the news to the girl I was in love with at the time, expecting her to be as excited as I was, she wasn't. And she apparently had a relative who had been a youth pastor, or maybe one of her relatives had married a guy that was going to be a youth pastor, but he didn't make that much money at it. And he ended up eventually quitting being a youth pastor and took another job where he could make more money. And she said, you know, I could never marry a youth pastor because I just don't think they would make enough money. And that was pretty hurtful to me. And then I had a decision to make. Could I do this? And I guess I made the decision, you know what, if she couldn't marry me as a youth pastor, then I really didn't think she really loved me. At least not like I loved her, and I had to make the decision then to move on and wait for somebody that would love me as a youth pastor. And it was a hurtful moment. However, it worked out to be a good thing, because I think I did better in the long run. So I guess I have to say that. Right? I know I did better in the long run, actually. So I got somebody who loved me for being a youth pastor. So awesome. And then one other moment. It's another relationship I was in. I was actually 21 or 22 at the time. Dating a girl pretty seriously. Actually asked her to marry me, and she said yes. However, there was a lot of different circumstances going on in my life at the time that I'm not going to go into now. However, I realized as our wedding drew closer that I wasn't ready to be married, and that I was making a choice. I was making a decision that I was going to regret. And as I sat and looked at both of us, I knew that we would be better off with better people. However, she didn't see that at the time. And anyway, with some advice from some other people, I had to make the decision to call off that engagement. And I felt pretty bad about what I'd done, because I knew I hurt her pretty bad. I felt pretty awful. It was a decision I had to do, but it was an experience that I carried a lot of hurts with for a long time and had to work through. Good news is, in case anyone was wondering, a couple years later, she met a guy that was a much better match for her. They're happily married now. Her and I are on good terms, and they have, I think, 3 kids now. They live in Fergus Falls, actually. So anyway, it worked out good, but it was a hurtful experience. It took a while for me to get over. Okay, I rambled about my experiences. Did you all get a chance to write down a little bit of hurtful experiences? What I want you to do then is, if we can break just for maybe like 10 minutes or so, get in groups of Let's do 4 or 5. Shauna, you can join a group. Get groups of 4 or 5 and go around. Share your experiences you want to. If there's ever done something like this, like shared like the highs and lows of your life with someone before? Do you do that much? Do you find it hard to talk about your sad moments?
Yeah.
How about those hurtful moments?
I find it hard to think.
You know, what's that?
I find it hard to think of them.
To think about?
Yeah, like come up with a little phrase for that.
Okay. The hurtful moments you had, were there some like you just did not want to share because of the group, because like you didn't know everyone that you weren't that close to? Were there some that you held back a little bit, sharing something? Sometimes we do, and that's okay. I wasn't expecting you to tell everything to everyone. We don't know everyone here that well, so. Sometimes too, we will block things out. We don't want to think about certain things in our past. You know, we'll kind of like try to deny or like try to think that they never really happened. One word I want to talk to you, I want to share. It's a word from the Bible, kind of a big word. The word is redemption. Anybody heard the word redemption? Did anybody know what basically a general definition of the word redemption is? Yes.
You kind of admit you were wrong and then like kind of see what you can do to kind of not fully make up for it, but see what you can do to make it better. The situation.
Kind of. That's more, I would say that's almost more confessing. Redemption's a little bit different. Is there anyone else that want to take a shot at the redemption? Literally what it means is to buy something back. If you've lost something and then buy it back. Or what I kind of did in a bigger biblical perspective, this is what it means. It means taking something that has been destroyed. So like it was in good condition and then it was destroyed, but then you restore it to something beautiful. Now, an example of this would be like is if you had a car, like what would be a great car to own?
Audi, Ferrari.
A Mustang, a Ferrari, an Audi.
No.
What's that?
Audi.
Esteban. What's it? What do you?
Lamborghini.
Mustang. You like Mustangs? Yeah. Lamborghini. There you go. One of mine I like is the Lotus. Anyone familiar with the Lotus? I like the yeah. Good stuff. Okay, so basically, if that was in a wreck. Bummer. We'd all be like, oh, I lost my whatever, Ferrari, Mustang, Lotus, whatever. But if there was some real talented mechanic who could take that, restore the body, replace the engine, fix whatever was broken, and give it a brand new coat, that would be redemption. He redeemed something that was destroyed and made it something beautiful again. Now, for those of us that have read the Word of God and understand our history, we found that we were created in paradise, in the garden. It started with Adam and Eve, but they did something. They disobeyed God's commands, and humanity, since Adam and Eve, has become something kind of ugly. We can all probably think of some stories we know of some people that have done some pretty nasty things in life. And if we, just things that make the news, some of us have maybe had some really nasty things happen to us that we didn't really even want to share about tonight, possibly. Humanity has become something destroyed or something ugly when it was created to be something beautiful. But this cool thing, this word in the Bible is redemption. God takes what was once beautiful, became something cruel, mean, and ugly, but through Jesus and through the Holy Spirit, He's able to redeem us and bring us back to the condition where we were created to do the good things. Jesus then makes us able and gives us the desire and the heart to do good things instead of evil things. It's the word redemption. And what I think is really cool is that this verse, Romans 8:28, it says, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose for Him. God, a lot of bad things have happened to us. A lot of hurtful things have happened to us. A lot of sad things has happened to us. But the cool thing that I find in Scripture is not that these things alienate us from God. These things, in some ways, if we've done something bad, it makes us feel guilty. We don't want to go to God. Or maybe something someone's done to us, or maybe someone said some cruel things, and we feel bad about ourselves, and so we feel unworthy of God's love because we don't feel like we measure up. But God is able to take those sad moments. God is able to take those hurtful moments and redeem them into something good. And like I shared from my own story, there was a hurtful moment in my life when I had to call off an engagement. But for both of us involved, I hurt her. She was hurt by what I did. If we look back in life and if you all knew who she was and you asked her what were some of her top hurtful moments, I'll bet she would tell you of the day that this guy that she was in love with broke her heart. Trust me, she's over me by now. But she would say that was, at that time in her life, that was a very hurtful moment. But both of us have a story of redemption, how God took that circumstance and used that to make us stronger people. Used it to teach us to trust Him, not in another person. And eventually out of that came two separate families that were better than the first one that was coming together, if that makes sense. Nathan shared some stories of his adoption. A lot of sad moments. A lot of hurtful experiences along the way. But God is redeeming those moments, making you a man of God, and He's filling you with a passion to help people like that. A passion for orphans, a passion for those in Thailand that need to hear the gospel. God's redeeming that. He takes those circumstances. So we don't find in Scripture a lot of people, when they come to God or they ask God, Jesus into their life, they think everything's going to be perfect now. That's not true. We'll still have sad things. We'll still have hurtful things that happen to us. But if we're in relationship with God, He takes those hurtful things and He redeems them. He builds them into something new and beautiful to be used to help others. So our hurtful experiences, they humble us. And they make us more compassionate to other people that have gone through the same things. He's using those things to redeem us, to make us servants like He is. All right. God uses our experiences to help us understand Him. Now just think about this. How else would we know about God's love and His compassion and His comfort for us if we'd never gone through a really difficult time? If I never was had gone through something that really hurt me, like maybe that previous engagement, or maybe being dumped by this girl I was in love with, or maybe a few of the, my cousin's death, or even witnessing 9/11, if I'd never experienced that hurt and that pain, I would never know how much God loves me and how much His love can carry me through something like that. If I'd never done anything wrong in life, I would never be able to experience God's forgiveness. There's no way I could know what God's forgiveness was like unless I had done something so awful and then found out that He doesn't hold it against me. He forgives me. See, God uses those experiences in your life to help you understand them. Without those experiences, we never truly understand God's love, His compassion, and His forgiveness for us. Second thing I want to say here, we can't take credit for our good experiences, nor can we take the blame for our worst experiences. I want you to just ponder this. If Zane was here tonight, I can't pick on him. I'll pick on Federico because I've heard he's a really good basketball player. When he's out there and he has single-handedly nailed 3 3-pointers in the last minute and a half to bring his team from behind for the win, he can't stand up there and say, look at me, look how awesome I am, look what I did, because his talent, his legs that work, his endurance, his heart that, some people have heart conditions, they can't play sports because they can't get their heart rate up too high. All his abilities that he has have come from God. God's given them to him. Or somebody may ace a test. How many of you, are there any of you here that are just math whizzes? Some are, some aren't. But there are some people, there are like kid geniuses, like 2 or 3, well, I'm probably not that young, but like they're in grade school that are doing college level, algebra, whatever it is. They're doing all these math, and they can't take credit for those incredible intellectual gifts because that intellect came from the Lord. And most of you know, some of you know, no matter how hard you try, you can't do math. So you know that the gift they got, it wasn't them. Somebody gave it to them. Because for you, no matter how much you put into it, it doesn't work. No matter what we have, everything we have comes from the Lord. I can't take credit. I can't sit back and say, I got this amazing wife because I am so awesome. No, she was a gift from God. Just the fact that she loves me can only be from God. She knows my weaknesses. Those things are from God. But on the same thing, those awful things that have happened in life, I know some people go through divorce, and one thing they say, that kids that are in a family where their parents go through a divorce, a lot of times the kids will end up blaming themselves, thinking, it was my problem. I was this. I was too much for my parents to handle. And a lot of kids take the blame. We can't take the blame for those things. They happen. They're part of a fallen world. It's not our fault. We can't take the credit for our good experiences, nor can we take the blame for the bad things. All of these things God has allowed because He's using them to redeem us to something good. Now, I know that sometimes it's hard to sit back, and some of us have our times like, man, God's really mean if He would allow me to go through something like this. Which leads me to my last point here. And some people, that's one of their biggest struggles with God. How could there be a God if there's so many bad things that happen in this world? I don't know if any of you seen a movie recently. I was with Liam Neeson. The Great. Thank you. And he was, throughout the movie, and if you watch it, I thought the movie was pretty enjoyable. I'd never seen one like that. The bad guy in the movie was the wolves, and they did a pretty good job, and those wolves were pretty freaky. So it's worth watching, but throughout the movie, and basically even the person that made the movie really it was a very pessimistic view on God. And his whole thing, he was like, God, get me, if there is a God, why can't He get me out of these different situations He's in? Anyway, interesting movie. And that's where a lot of people look at life. That's their view. With all these bad things, how can there be a God? If there's a God, why can't He prevent these things? And you know what? I can understand those questions because I've had them before. But let me say this. I came across this quote, which I think is really good. I don't know if any of you ever heard of Soren Kierkegaard. I know he's an old philosopher. I don't know enough details about him, but he's a pretty well-known philosopher. Anyway, he said this quote: life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Now, to explain this, some of you in here maybe saw the most recent Batman, The Dark Knight Rises.
When I was there, the power went out halfway through the movie.
That was
Really?
a bad day.
Oops. Ouch. Did you ever get to finish the movie?
No.
Never. Did you get to the point? Did you get to the point where Bane, it was just a few seconds after this, Bane and Batman fought, and Bane breaks Batman's back?
Don't tell me.
Oh! He is known as the man who breaks the Batman.
Yep. So anyway, for those of you who've seen it, but there's a scene where he goes down, breaks his back, he's laying there, and we're wondering, is he dead or not? Now, if the movie had ended there, if it had stopped, like if that's all the further you made it and the power went out, we would think, wow, that was a really sad movie. But I won't give it away. I will. Batman wasn't dead. He came back. If it's going to surprise you, I haven't seen a superhero movie yet when they haven't won. Batman wins. We'll just put it that way.
What? He wins?
By the end of the movie, none of us were like, oh, that's so awful that his back was broken. It was an awesome movie because he came back from a broken back and kicked butt. You know what I'm saying? That's what was so cool. He fought to come back, and that's why life can only be understood. If in the middle of the movie we're like, this stinks, but once we understand the ending, it makes sense. Now you know what? That wasn't a bad experience. It toughened Batman up, and he went through, understood a few things, understood some suffering and different things like that. In the same way, some of you know this story, the story of Jesus. And I think this is a picture from the movie, The Passion of Christ. If that was the last thing we saw, if that's all we knew of Jesus, we would say that was a sad story. That was a waste of a life. But the story didn't end there. I thought this picture was kind of cool of an empty tomb.
I like the smoke.
Yeah, I did too. I was like, that's kind of, I looked for a few new pictures. But the story didn't end there because He rose again. And in our life, the sad moments we've gone through is not the end. If you've lost a loved one, it's not the end. Death isn't the end. It's in some ways, it's just the beginning. We believe in eternal life. We believe in this thing called redemption, that God takes the bad things. That's why I know, yes, it was sad to lose my cousin, but death is not the end. It's just our bodies dying, but our spirits live forever. life can only be understood backwards, but we have to live it forward. You need to see that those experiences, the difficult times, they're not the end of the story. There's more to come, and that's where the challenge is, to keep our faith, to keep pressing on. All right, I think I have. Yep, I just have a couple verses. A verse from Revelation, Jesus appears and says, I am the living one. I died, but look, I'm alive forever and ever. I hold the keys of death and the grave. Jesus has overcome death for us. I got another one here. Our earthly bodies are planted. This is talking about when we die. This isn't the end for us. It's the beginning. Our earthly bodies are planted in the ground, but when we die, but they will be raised to life forever, to live forever. Our bodies are buried in brokenness, however you pronounce it, but they will be raised in glory. Then they are buried in weakness, but they will be raised in strength. They are buried as natural human bodies, but they will be raised as spiritual bodies. Death is not the end. Our bad experiences in life are not the end. And then one final one, another from Revelation says, look, God's home is now among His people. If you feel far from God, a day is coming where you won't. God's home is now among His people. He will live with them. They will be His people. God Himself will be with them. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And in eternity, there will be no more death. There will be no more sorrow. There will be no more crying or pain. All of these things are gone forever. The question is, the struggle of faith for us, can we press on through the difficult times, holding on to our faith so that we get to experience the end of the story? See, life, when that day comes, we'll all look back and we'll understand all of this crap that happened in life. But we don't get to start at the end. We have to live it forward, as Soren Kierkegaard talked about. What's that? Okay. The reason some of us worship so much, we get so passionate when we're in God's presence, is because we've seen God bring us through these things. We've experienced His forgiveness. Some of us have done some really awful things, but we found that God forgives us, and that's why we get so excited when we get the opportunity to worship Him. Some of us have been through some really hurtful things. I know a lady in our church who made a decision a number of years ago to get an abortion, and she regretted it so much, but she was able to receive God's forgiveness, and she loves God so much because of the forgiveness she received. Some of us have been through such hurtful things, but when we see God's compassion, when we see His love bring us through, we get more excited. We fall more in love with Him, and that is why we worship the way we do. Tonight, what I want to do, I want to challenge you tonight to lay your experiences before God. To thank Him for the good ones. We don't take credit for those things. That's why it's important for us to thank God, knowing it's not me. I'm not the one that makes the good things happen. God does. So tonight, when we're spending time in worship, remember to thank God for those good things you listed. And then the other things, the sad things and the hurtful things, lay them at His feet and say, God, I give you these things to redeem them for good in my life.